What's happening, YTBC? So as we have just been entertained by the riveting performance provided by GGG and his management team constructing this overwhelmingly farcical situation of fighting lower level fighters and pretending that this is competition that should be revered. So, a few guys, I've watched a few guys' videos, props to the guys who are making really good videos, obviously stating the obvious, in the sense that, there's not much to say really in terms of, the Mexican style GGG. We got that, or his idiotic fans will continue to justify the fact that this is progress in the sport of boxing, to have farcical fights like this and revere individuals who are giving you this quality of competition. So I just wanted to just dispel a few things, a few myths, there's a few sort of talking points, a few things that people have been saying, people that I respect, who have come up with this point that GGG is being feared or being docked and all that kind of stuff. I keep hearing this same narrative constantly. So one thing I wanted to point out, before actually going through this video, I just wanted to point out a few things. GGG stated that, and his management team, so I just don't want to exempt them, but it was stated that GGG was happy to fight any top competitors or top competitions, or anybody for that matter, between the weight class of 154 pounds all the way up to 168 pounds. Now, I don't want to hear any other revisions. That is exactly a fact. This is what has been stated, and it has never been taken out or never been, totally dismissed by his management team. That is a fact. So bear that in mind as I go through my video. So first things first. So GGG. My first point is that GGG is a B to C level fighter. Now, some of you might disagree. That's absolutely fine, but I'll make you aware of why I think GGG is a B or C level fighter. First of all, GGG, looking at the level of competition GGG is fighting throughout his professional career, GGG has not fought any A level or, any fighters of a higher standard that could actually be claimed to be elite. Because when you actually, and basically give somebody the title of being elite, the first thing I always ask, and the first thing I always checked, is who did he beat to, enthrone this particular individual as elite. And GG hasn't fought any competition or any fighter that you can actually deem to say that is elite. That is a fact. So in that particular regard, GG has been fighting B to C level class fighters, and to be honest, you're only as good as the competition you have beaten. So in this particular regard, GGG has been fighting B to C level fighters, and in that regard, I will say GGG is a B to C level fighter because he's been fighting that level of competition. That's who he's been beating. So he is not anything other than B to C level fighter. Secondly, a lot of people have been coming up with the fact that GGG has got this amateur record. He's got a wonderful amateur record. I keep hearing this constantly. Great, fantastic amateur record. Well, let me just put it this way. Fuck that shit. At the end of the day, GGG is now a professional. He's fighting in the pros. He's fighting pro-level fighters. So I don't give a shit what he's been doing in his amateur record. Couldn't care less. At the end of the day, if you're fighting professionals, you are going to be judged based on who you are fighting. And he's in the pro ranks, so he's been fighting professionals. And now, if you keep bringing up his amateur record, then you, as a fan or fanboy, who are constantly mentioning the fact that GGG has a fantastic amateur record, obviously sees GGG as an amateur. That's the level you see him as. If you're constantly bringing up his amateur record, oh, he fought this guy in the amateurs, he fought that guy in the amateurs, that don't mean shit. That don't mean shit. The amateur record is over. If GGG wants to be viewed as an amateur, then please continue to mention his amateur record. If you don't want to mention his amateur record, then I will consider GGG as a pro. That's quite simple, logical. It's not something too difficult to understand. So fuck his amateur record. He is a professional now. Thirdly, GGG doesn't have, or basically GGG is being feared or being ducked by many professional fighters in his weight class, or basically any professional fighter, full stop. Most of the professional fighters around his weight class are ducking GGG. Now, this is where me and most of the guys in the YTBC have a disagreement. Now, I respect the real boxing fans of the YTBC who say, well, these fighters are ducking GGG. First of all, let me deconstruct that. So basically, what we've been led to believe that when a fighter says or makes the indication that a fighter has to be compensated or remunerated for taking fights with other fighters, we in the YTBC deem that as ducking. I just wanted to just check that and make that perfectly clear, because that is the rationale when somebody starts saying that GGG is being ducked because certain fighters have asked or have made it perfectly clear that they have to be compensated for fighting GGG. GGG is supposed to be an elite fighter, right? He's supposed to be this marquee name that's going to be in someone's resume. Well, if that's the case, if that is the mindset of many of these GGG fans thinking that people are ducking GGG, then how do we explain the, just for example, the situation between Floyd Mayweather when he was coming in competition, when he was fighting, and Manny Pacquiao? Are we to say that Manny Pacquiao was ducking Mayweather if you actually look at that logic? Now, it's just a simple question. For the fact that Manny Pacquiao, during that particular time period when they were going through the first negotiations, which I don't really give a shit about now, but during the first negotiation, it was Manny Pacquiao turned down a fight with Floyd Mayweather. That is a fact. At the first negotiation, the fight was called off through Manny Pacquiao's team. That is a fact. That's actually been corroborated by Manny Pacquiao's trainer, the good old Freddie Roach. He's actually made that perfectly clear. That's on record. So if we're going to use that logic, Manny Pacquiao waited 6 years, ducked Mayweather for 6 years, and then got compensated hugely by fighting Mayweather. He had a compensation up to the tune of $200 million, if we're led to believe the facts. So when a fighter actually says, look, I want to be compensated for actually taking on this challenge, are we actually now going to be saying that these fighters are actually ducking GGG? Because I don't particularly believe that. I mean, okay, just to take that logic out of the way, with with Lara, for example, Lara called out GGG. Now he's fighting in a weight class slightly below because GGG likes fighting smaller guys. Lara called him out, but we didn't hear any discussions or any sort of acknowledgement from GGG's management team or GGG himself. It was basically ignored. So are you saying that Lara should have been ignored? Is that fair? Is that right? GGG's being ducked? Because Lara called him out and they ignored him. That's just one example. Secondly, there was a time, and I remember seeing the actual video himself of GGG himself making it perfectly clear on video that he wasn't going to be taking on challenges like Peter Quillin. And I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about at the time. This was a couple of years ago. There's videos out there of GGG saying he wasn't interested in taking on Peter Quillin. And there was no justifiable reason why that fight couldn't have taken place. There was no justification. That would have been a competitive fight, at that particular point in time. I'm not saying Peter Quillin would have won the fight. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that it would have been an interesting fight to actually have somebody, test GGG. And I think at that particular point in time, Peter Quillin could have given him a decent test. That would have been a competitive fight. But GGG himself made it perfectly clear on video that he wasn't interested in taking the fight. So, you have people like Danny Jacobs, like Joe Saunders, Chris Eubank, Canelo. I mean, this myth that, all these fighters are ducking him based on what particular premise? Well, based on the fact that they want to be compensated to actually fight this dude? GGG is supposed to be the cash cow, right? If we're going to be using the Mayweather logic, GGG is the cash cow. Or is he not? Is he an elite fighter or is he not? That's the question I ask those people who are constantly perpetuating this narrative that GGG is feared. He is not feared. Fighters will fight GGG. But GGG has to act accordingly. If he wants to be revered as an elite fighter, he has to get these names on his resume. He has to get nice, decent competition. Not fighting the likes of Dominic Wade. That is my specific issue with GGG. I'm not going to be, falling for the bullshit constantly because we've heard this whole scenario played out previously. It's been done before. We've seen it before. I'm not going to play that narrative. Andre Ward. If GGG was such an elite fighter, why doesn't he want to take on Andre Ward? You know, the fight was presented to him and his management team, and it was turned down. That is on record. That is a fact. But they didn't want to take the competition. Why? You know, but they want to feed you the narrative that he is being feared, and he is not being feared. So let's just get that bullshit out of the way. I don't want to hear that. He is not being feared. GGG and his management team are playing a strategic game with HBO to ensure that they are, you know, feeding this stupid narrative that GGG is an elite fighter. He is not an elite fighter. He's not. He's only fighting, you know, the level of competition tells me, you know, based on the level of competition he's taking on, he's fighting B and C level class fighters. That's it. So he's a B and C level fighter. Once he starts taking on elite, the best competition, he will be considered as an elite fighter, an A level fighter. But he has to beat another A level fighter in order to be considered as an A level fighter. You cannot be just given, you know, a mantle without actually working for it. And GGG hasn't worked for it. Simple as that. Now, the final thing I want to talk about with GGG is this race, constantly bringing up the race thing, saying, oh, well, you know, people don't like GGG because he's white and all that kind of BS, all that bullshit. You know, if you're such a fanboy or such a fuckboy who's constantly mentioning race on every single, you know, opportunity when it comes to GGG or certain type of fighters, you're just a fuckboy. You're a waste of space. You're a fuckboy. It's simple as that. You know, you have no, there's no sort of benefit. You don't benefit anything. Because first of all, GGG is Asian. You know, that's a simple fact. Look at where he was born. Look at him. He is an Asian dude. No problem with that. I like, you know, the funny thing is GGG is a likable guy. Nice guy. Says all the right things. Cool. No problem. But we're talking about boxing here, the hurt game. I want to see GGG fight, competitive fights. That's what I want to see. And then you get your props once you start beating A-level fighters. When you start having top competition, you get your props that way. You don't just bestow somebody, you know, the accolade of being a top-level fighter based on what? What exactly? Based on the fact that what he looks like because of his race? That's stupidity 101. So, you know, miss me with that race bullshit. He's this, he's that. I don't want to hear that shit. And all these people who are constantly mentioning, oh well, look at the channels. It's all this black channels, hey, black channels, hey, black channels, hey, black channels, hey, black channels, come on, black channels, hit me, black channel. You know, I don't want to hear that shit. It's kind of redundant. You know, bro. You know, get a new fucking, you know, try something else, bro. It's boring now. You know, it's redundant. Nobody wants to hear that shit. You know, people want to hear that shit. They're just fuckboys. They're not boxing fans. They're fuckboys. Only fuckboys want to hear that. Oh, it's black channels who are saying there's a black channel. No, you know, that's fuckboy shit. That's a pussified fuckboy shit. It's boring. It's boring. Get a new fucking line of conversation, dude. It's boring. You know, I want to talk about the fact that I look at GGG and I see, you know, a narrative that being perpetuated here, trying to, you know, manufacture a false praise. And I'm not going to be, you know, down for that shit, that false praise. Do something, show me something, beat somebody elite, you know, raise your stock, fight these dudes, step up to them, do something, you know, create an aura by beating people, the elite fighters, the best fighters, taking the best competition. That's what makes fighters great, taking on the best competition. That's what Muhammad Ali did. He took on the best competition. Muhammad Ali, let's not get it wrong. He did fight some bums, right? He did fight. I don't like using the word bums, but I will use it because at the end of the day, the context is quite clear. He did fight some exhibition fights. That's what they call them. For me, they were bums. He did fight quite a few, but he did take on some of the best fighters ever. He did take them on. You know, and I'm not going to shit on his resume because, you know, it is sacrilege. I mean, Muhammad Ali is one of the best fighters of all time. But he did fight some bums too. But still, at the end of the day, you know, you cannot, there is no question. GGG has not fought any elite fighters, not one. So please, for all these people who are constantly perpetuating this mantra that GGG is a top fighter, he is not. So, VC, that's my video. You know, so I just want to, this is the last time I'm going to mention this. It's all there on record. You know, I'm not going to be fooled or let these guys trying to fool people to claim that GGG is an elite fighter. He's not an elite fighter. He never has. He never has been. I mean, even his Olympic record will tell you he won silver. He's a B-level fighter. He won silver. He didn't win the gold. He didn't win the gold. He is a silver You know, it's a bit like Amir Khan. It's exactly the same thing. And I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna do a separate video for Amir Khan. These guys had, you know, if you want to bring up amateur records, they were B-level fighters. They were bronze medal, they were silver medalists. They were B-levels. You know, that's the level that he's fighting at. He's fighting at his level, which is B level, which is below elite. That's what he's fighting at. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's my video, guys. I'm not gonna leave this too long, but I just want to lay it all out there because I'm not gonna talk about this shit no more. You know, peace.